Hello and welcome to Smack Talk.
Hi, I'm Max Farrell.
I'm Gabe Gribben.
I'm Deja Ison.
And I'm Jacob Stevens.
And I'm your host, Thomas Lagrassi. This week on Smack Talk, we will be talking about censorship in games. So Max, since this is a hot button issue with you, we'll start with your opinion on censorship in games.
Well, I think there's certain games that do require a level of censorship and holding back certain topics, like games that are aimed towards like a younger audience, like children's games. Like Dora the Explorer probably shouldn't have cuss words in it, or any murder. But like, I think if you're aiming for a higher audience, like with GTA or something like that, I think with the rating system, we really don't have to worry about censorship just because most of that stuff is taken care of.
Gabe, thoughts?
I think it's good in some aspects, but yet I can see where people see the negatives of it. Because, like, with GTA, it's like a parent buys it for their kid, and then literally 30 minutes later after getting home, the kid is picking up a prostitute in a back alley. So,
Yep.
not the greatest thing.
Yeah, you can pick them up on the street.
You can.
in GTA, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to go to a back alley.
Yeah, but the
it's
kids
not
are
like real
shameful.
life.
Oh my god.
Gotta hide from your boss and your
We-
coworkers.
I love how that's what we focus on.
Oh, yeah.
So, what are your thoughts?
I think it's needed, and especially for games for younger children. Let's say Pokemon and had like the violence of Dead or Alive or something. Would you really buy it for a 10-year-old? Well, you shouldn't.
I mean, I know some parents that would buy it for a 10-year-old.
It's because they're not educated on the rating system.
Yeah.
I think that if the parent wants to buy a violent video game, GameStop will tell you when there's a violent rating on this game, okay? They sell it to the parent. If the parent then wants to give it to the child and be irresponsible with their child, they can suffer the consequences.
That is actually an interesting point. A lot of you have mentioned ratings. So what I want to ask is, do any of you think that the ESRB works, or do we think that maybe they're a little bit too lenient or even just maybe vague?
I don't think... I think the problem inherently with a rating system like that, or even a rating system like with television, is it doesn't necessarily tell you the actual... like, especially if you're a person that's been through a situation where you have post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't think that, that kind of thing gives you the information you need to be able to avoid it. I think that the ESRB and, the MPAA's rating system is not really for that, and I think that's what we should be more focused on. I think there should also be, with violence and stuff like that, there does need to be like that rating system works for that, but it doesn't work for like sexual content and stuff like that, because there are certain things that this is another discussion, but like with sexual stuff, we kind of haven't had that conversation yet in video games. We're just kind of getting into that conversation.
Sure, with my father simulator.
Please don't mention that.
So Gabe, what's your thoughts on the ratings board?
On the ESCRB. ESRB.
You added
You added another E. It's ESRB.
You can continue with your
You're gonna
sentence.
say right.
Personally, I think in some standards, like, it covers some standards. Like, in other standards, it is kind of vague-ish in. Like you said with post-traumatic stress disorder, where if you have people if you have people that are ex-military that do have it, or even not even ex-military, just someone with post-traumatic stress disorder, there's nothing really covered in those ratings that would bring you to believe that would be something that would trigger you. Tumblr.
Yeah.
But in some instances it does cover it, like smoking, drinking,
Yeah.
that stuff, that's all covered fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not to hog up time or anything,
Yeah.
but like, with specific triggers, like for instance, if smoking is a trigger for you, or if like certain sounds are a trigger for you.
Yeah.
It really isn't. It really doesn't cover all that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can find that out through like reviews of the game,
Yeah.
but there's still no emphasis on that.
Yeah. Well, that and other more shady, like more graphic things that could be covered.
Yeah.
Like that. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it.
I don't know what you're gonna say, so I don't.
Things that are more inappropriate. I don't know, the sexual matter, molestation,
Okay.
like
there you go.
stuff like that's not covered in ESRB. ESRB ratings. Those aren't covered. Stuff like that isn't covered.
It's just like sexual themes or
yeah,
sexual
it just
content.
says that.
Can I weigh on this here? So it can be really it can be vague, but sometimes you can't really be exact about this. Do you guys remember Saints Row 3?
Yes.
Do you remember some of the, I'm gonna say, special weapons they had?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One in particular.
Yeah.
Like the Punisher.
Yes, the Punisher.
We can't.
The
We
wonderful
really can't say
bat.
that word on the show.
We
The
probably
Punisher.
shouldn't.
No.
Probably not, but we're going to anyways.
A sexual toy-based weapon.
Yes. What can you, because that was used for beating people. What is that going to go under is the problem. That's,
Well,
that's why it's vague as well. That's a part of why it's vague, because they can't list it under one category.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Is it's still violence. The game's about violence, and that's not. I mean, there may be someone out there who's had an experience with that being attacked by that kind
Wait
of
a
weapon.
minute.
But I don't think that's a sexual content thing. I think that's
That's some more violence.
Yeah, that's more under violence. I don't think it. Everything could be laid out. They could be like, hey, these are all the things that are going to happen in the game without spoiling it. They can say, this is the kind of content you can expect from this game and games of the same series.
Wouldn't that solve a big problem of it?
Yeah, if they did, but it's more like all the descriptions now are more just like telling people, advertising it to people, not necessarily warning people about content in the game.
I think it's just this whole system is flawed and outdated. It doesn't cover as much as the genres that we have now.
Mhm.
Like, it's just I keep bringing up Pokemon, but Pokemon can get violent. Have you ever actually read some of the Pokédex entries? They're dark, and yet they sell this game for 10-year-olds. And Ace Attorney.
Wait, are we talking about the balloon that takes children
Well,
away?
No. Don't.
See, actually, Ace Attorney has been rated T through M, so that's not a
Yeah.
big issue. Like, their latest game was rated M,
Which one?
and it was just as tame as the regular Ace Attorney games.
Which one are you
The
talking
Dual
about?
Destinies for
Dual
the 3DS.
Destiny. I played that through. I don't understand why they would rate that M in any way.
Maybe because
I think 'cause the
the blood was
3D.
more prevalent.
Yeah.
3D.
Yeah.
There was
So you
also-
could actually
minute.
look
There
at
was
the crime
also
scene
more
from all
blood.
angles, and some of the way the people died was.
Now,
kind of-
hang on a second. Now you're basing a game rating by a system? No.
No, I
You're
said it was
saying
more
that's-
graphic, and the images were more graphic than they usually were.
I've played all the games. They weren't much more graphic. They weren't all that much more graphic. There may have been a couple slight details that they fixed, but that's not really.
And some of the murders were actually animated. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did the same- well,
that also
They
gave
were
Metal
more like
Gear.
screenshots. They didn't actually show the murder itself. They just did screenshots of them about to do it. They did
Yeah.
the same thing in the first game. The trial with the woman getting beat over the head with a statue. That's if you're gonna say that, then yeah, you can consider that M for mature too. I don't understand why they would.
Yeah. Well, the problem with the user rating is that you don't know who's rating it. It's a board that's not even specified. Like Metal Gear. I'm gonna say 4 because I'm not familiar with the titles consistently.
Or the one for the PS3.
Yeah, not the newest one, and not the. It's one campaign.
No, the dude that had when
Yeah.
Solid Snake became old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that. And they have drug use is one of their warnings. If you go through the entire game, there is no drug use until you realize the time passing mechanic.
Okay. We're gonna have to wrap up a bit soon, but before we do, some of you mentioned that there are certain topics that you're not sure if they should be in games. So, is there going too far in games? Like you mentioned molestation. Are there points that should not be in games, or should games encompass anything?
I was
I'm gonna say-
last words.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say games, like anything else, is an art style. And I think if we have a better rating system that'll allow for games to be more graphic and do what they do as much as they can, become the real art style that it is, without having to worry about, oh, well, this, you know, we're going to get calls, we're not going to be able to put out this game. If they can aim for their exact audience by telling everybody what's going to be in the game, and then just still make the game that they want to make,
Yeah.
you know, that's gonna free up, and that's gonna make way for a lot of games we haven't seen before.
Yeah. I would say that with a better rating system and better warning system, kind of like a pre-game detection, then you can put those topics into games, but you'll need basically a groundwork for it to properly notify people of it, because they're real world topics that affect people, so why should we censor the real world in an art form?
Pixelate the real world. No nudity.
Any other?
I think it's how the content, how the developer handles the content truthfully. Like to me, video games can be very therapeutic. So if someone wants us to explore like a really bad part of their past, instead of just, you know, facing the aggressor, they could play video games and still get that same therapy from it.
I had to say yes and no to this question, and I'll give you an example of why. GTA 5. There is a mission in the game, you can choose to skip it, where you actually have to torture someone.
Oh,
Yeah.
Trevor, who tortures someone in the game. They give you the option to skip this. Because of this, what would go under the rating? Would they tell you torture someone and then
Well,
They
they
give you the
also
option
did
to skip
that.
it.
They also did that in Advanced Warfare 2 with the no Russian.
you're right.
But before you even start the game, it's like, which that should be a thing.
They should
a lot
do
of
that
games
right
cover.
before the game.
Is-
If they don't warn you before, when you buy the game, they should tell you in the game at the start of the game that this is going to happen. You will not be like penalized if you skip it.
You won't miss story.
You won't miss anything important. Just if you choose to skip it, which is only giving this more detail to the story itself, which not by much, but you understand.
Character development.
Character development, yes.
I think the player choice has a big whatchamacallit.
Yeah,
It's a big impact
Yeah.
on how it plays out.
but a
Yeah,
pre-warning
like if you had to
system is
do
pretty
it,
good.
I think the rating should reflect that. But since it's an option, I think the rating should reflect that. Like you can skip the whole thing and you don't have to know it exists. Like you can have like a 10-year-old play GTA and not kill a single person and maybe even win the game.
I like that.
Well, I
I
think
don't like killing
that's.
people.
I think that's all the time we have for today.
It should be an achievement.
I'm Thomas Legrossi. This is Max, Gabe, Deja, and Jacob, and we will see you next time on Smack Talk.